Okay, Cory, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Freelansers. This is my attempt at starting podcast number 2. In this podcast, we get answers to all of your burning freelance questions. And today I am joined by Cori Strong, correct? You have a hyphenated last name though, Cory, right?
I do. My last name is Burns, but just for my business, it's Cori Strong.
Okay. So can I call you Cori Strong? I probably should have clarified before I started recording. So I'm joined by Cori Strong, and despite living in the same community for quite some time, I actually don't know Cori at all. She's a total stranger. We started talking like 5 minutes ago, and she does freelance photography work based out of Bloomington, Illinois. But I'm going to let her introduce herself a bit more. Cori, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very looking forward to our talk. But go ahead and, so what is it you do, if you wouldn't mind kind of talking about that for a minute?
Yes. Hi. First off, thank you for having me. This is kind of new for me, the whole podcast thing, something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So I am thrilled to be on with you. So yes, I'm a photographer, but I specialize in one area of photography, one genre, and that's boudoir. So a little bit unorthodox. When most people hear that, they're like, oh, piques their interest right away. So basically, I work with women very intimately, one-on-one. When people think of boudoir, if they know what it is, they just think of women in lingerie. And based on what they have seen, they may have certain ideas of what that looks like. But my whole approach and style is very personal, very customized. And I always say it's based on the female gaze versus the male gaze, which we are used to seeing everywhere. The male gaze and the male idea of what sensuality and sexiness means for a woman.
Great. I would like to apologize for all men, but
no need. They're great.
I think I might get bad emails from people for speaking for them. Yeah, Cori, this is great. I have been familiar with your work for quite some time, and not just because I'm a general internet perv, but because your stuff was always recommended to me through like Instagram, I believe, initially, based on our locations. And then, and you do phenomenal work, really. You do really, really good work. And this is, you're very right. This is something that's very unorthodox. It's kind of a non-traditional career path in a sense. How did you get started doing boudoir photography? And how long have you been doing it, by the way? I don't know if I caught that.
Okay, so I have been doing boudoir, let's see, strictly for about 8 years. And so I started photography when I was in college. I needed an elective, and I was at Heartland Community College at the time, and I'm like, oh, film photography, black and white film photography. I'm like, that sounds fun. So we were still working in the dark room. Digital was like just kind of gaining steam. And so I feel like my first little experience with photographing a woman was in that class. It was our portraiture assignment, and I grabbed my best friend and I photographed her, and I was instantly hooked. But then so after I graduated college, I started my own photography business, and I feel like everyone else, I just started with kids, families. It's just because that's what you saw online. You didn't see any boudoir.
Yeah.
I quickly realized that was not for me. I was leaving every session just hating life and wondering what I was doing. So my oldest daughter was 2 at the time, and I picked her up from daycare one day, and one of her teachers pulled me aside and she goes, "Hey, I know you're a photographer. Would you ever consider taking some sexy photos of me that I can give my husband for our anniversary?" And I was like, well, that's interesting. Sure, why not? So I went to her house and I did the photo shoot. And I was like, this is so much better than chasing a toddler around, dealing with multiple people. And I have a background in fashion. I went to ISU for fashion design and merchandising. And during that time, we were supposed to be making mood boards to design our apparel line, but I was obsessed with the fashion photography. And like just something in the back of my mind was like, you need to do something with fashion photography. And so I think that part really led me to wanting to do boudoir because I get to help style my clients. My style is very much reminiscent of Vanity Fair and Vogue. And so I love bringing those like fashion elements into what I do. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I feel like I just kind of fell into boudoir and then was immediately hooked and I quit everything else.
Right. That's a really fun story. I can't imagine how many people um, I like want to go into it but don't know how to ask, and probably don't know how to approach someone to
Oh, right.
say, hey, I'm interested in taking sexy photos of you for your husband, or
Yeah.
like I would get arrested, I think, if I was walking around town doing that. But that's really, really neat. So, what was that? What was that like first shoot for you like when you've got a background in photography, so your camera equipment and all that stuff. But then you're in this like totally unknown scenario with not a complete stranger necessarily, but with someone who is um, never been this like open and vulnerable with you before. How did that work? Can you walk me through that a little bit?
Yes. Well, this was towards the very beginning of my photography career. So I didn't know my equipment as well as I do now. So I was still kind of fumbling around and praying that something turned out. But it was so much different than things are now. So I went to her house and I didn't have any knowledge of posing women, really minimal knowledge of lighting, and absolute zero knowledge on how to work with a woman before the session. Um, so I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and I'm like, "Oh, this sounds fun. Let's try this." And really, then she loved her images, but I thank God that she loved her images because I think if it would have been the other way, I wouldn't have pursued boudoir photography at all.
Yeah, I would assume so. And that's probably, and I actually have a couple of follow-up questions here, but I do want to touch on one thing real quick before I follow up with these other ones, is that once you get that first one done, um, I think that that's probably word of mouth is probably one of the biggest factors in being able to maintain that career early on, at least, because it's not like you can take these photos of someone and then go parading them around on Instagram or Facebook if no one knows that that's what you do. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, those are pretty intimate photos. Um, so I would assume that word of mouth after you did hers is kind of spread, and then it kind of went from there.
So I'm trying to think back that long. I think she gave me permission to share a couple of them, and back then I didn't even have like a really functioning website. I think I just put one up on my Facebook page at the time and said that I was doing boudoir, and I think I charged like $200.
Yeah.
And then I got some bites, and then like you said, those first clients really just told all their friends, and then other people started seeing them, and then before I knew it, I had a portfolio. Not a great portfolio by today's standards, but I had
Start
some.
of one.
Yeah.
Very cool. So a couple of things that I want to talk about in terms of the follow-up questions that I had is that I think and I don't know, Corey, do you have, you said you did a little bit of traditional photography. So, I mean, you probably have some background in what I'm going to talk about too, but one of the big things that, in my traditional line of work, I guess, corporate and commercial work, that when you are starting out, is that you don't necessarily know about the importance of lighting and working with talent. Those are two things that actually I want to kind of follow up on. Um, so one of the most important parts of what I do if we're doing interviews of any kind is working with someone before you even start recording a camera. Is kind of getting that rapport down, because without that, they are going to come off horrible on camera. And I apologize for my dog in the background. I don't know what's going on.
No problem.
And she's just trying to chime in. Frankly, she doesn't like him. I have the spotlight. But it's so important, so vitally important to work with talent. And in my industry, they're just talking on camera. They are fully clothed in suits and stuff, or whatever. And it's still so difficult to work with people sometimes and get them to a place where they're comfortable talking, even about something as mundane as, spreadsheets or whatever. Um, how do what are some tips, or how do you approach these scenarios now that you've been in the industry for a while, with working with someone beforehand and getting them comfortable with, um, opening up in these ways, and being comfortable to, posting their body, and how do you approach those situations?
Yes, that's a great question. And this is a huge part of my process. So, the very first part of the entire process, if someone wants to work with me, they'll usually reach out either through Instagram or through my website. And then we set up a phone consultation, or, pre-COVID days, we would meet in person.
Yeah.
And that would just be before someone even books a shoot. I think it is so vital to meet with your photographer, especially in this line of work. And I think it's vital to meet my clients, like you said. So this is the time when we talk about all of the reasons for wanting to do a shoot. And I mean, a lot of the reasons for this are deeply personal, and everyone has been through something different. I mean, every single client has a different reason for wanting to do this. So it's very important that I understand what the client is looking for. And then every woman has a different idea of what beauty means, confidence, sensuality, how they want to be portrayed. And so it's, I think that this initial touch point is the most important part. So after that initial consultation, we continue to plan together. So after they book a shoot, I do a style consultation with them, which now we do a Zoom chat, and I share my screen. We talk about their personal style, and then we actually go lingerie shopping together. So we are doing a ton of the work before the photo shoot even starts. And I think that part right there has been invaluable to all of my clients.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that sounds like there's a lot of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, there's a lot of like hand holding, almost like a
Yeah.
leading them down the way,
Yep.
which I think is important. I wish I wish I could just go online shopping with a client for like an hour ahead of time. It'd probably make my life a lot easier. But no, that's really neat. And for anyone listening or watching, that's a big aspect of pretty much any freelancing that you're doing that's going to involve any human beings at all, is needing to make someone comfortable on camera. And then um, something that another kind of follow up that I want to talk about too is, you mentioned early on that you really didn't have a lot of experience lighting. How has your experience grown, and what are some things that you've learned over the years? You said you've been doing this for 8 years now, right? What are some things that you've learned, and how has your maybe approach to lighting changed in that time frame?
Okay, that's a great question. I literally knew nothing about lighting when I started, other than you need light to make a photograph. So let's see, when my youngest was born, I love this story and I credit this for my success. She nursed exclusively, like the kid would not take a bottle. So for 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
So I was nursing this baby all day, every day. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to take this opportunity to really learn the things that I don't know. So I hopped on, I found out about creativelive.com somehow, probably through an ad. And I found a class by Sue Bryce, and she has been my mentor. I have been learning from her for the past 8 years. And so every time I would lay down to nurse, I would pull up my phone and I would watch these videos. And it took me through how to use natural light, how to pose women. I learned about the different types of lighting scenarios, how to manipulate light. I learned how lighting affects skin texture and how it can create curves. And so I actually learned the fundamentals of light. And after that, I felt I mean, I just felt like my knowledge went through the roof.
I
I felt so
bet.
much more confident. And then over the years, I've taken multiple courses from different lighting instructors. So, no matter what, if it's a dark day in my studio, I can pull out my strobes and I can recreate natural light. And so, actually understanding what light does, how to manipulate it, what shadows do to a woman's figure, that helped me create different moods based on what my client wants.
Great. So if I'm not, but if someone listening were to, would be interested in, maybe learning more about this, other than Creative Live, what are some like experiential things that you might recommend people do to kind of learn a little bit more about lighting? I mean, lighting the human body, I think, is not way different. It's substantially different than just lighting the face like I do for an interview, or lighting a watch or something like for a product shot. Do you have any like tips or recommendations for people trying to learn that, other than the online course, I guess?
Yeah, I always like to tell people, if you just want to see how light behaves, I like to take my phone, and I do this with clients. Like I'll have them take their phone and stand at different angles relative to a window, and I just have them pay attention to what it does on the face, especially. And you can do this. You can go grab a friend and get your camera and just have them move in different positions relative to your light source and just pay attention to what it does. So I like to pay attention to where the shadows fall. You can take different pictures based on their angle. And then I used to do this in photography class when I was first learning. So I would pull them up next to each other and see what those different angles did and how the light behaved differently. I would just start with actually looking at the light and the shadows on your subject rather than trying to learn complicated light setups.
That's great. I think I mean, honestly, that's probably some of the best advice I've heard. Um,
And it's so
on,
simple.
yeah. I mean, people get so caught up in trying to recreate 3-point lighting.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's as common in photography, but like there's a light behind me, there's one here.
Mhm.
Actually, I don't have a fill light, but this one's off to the edge enough, and people are so caught up in these terms. Where I'm like, there's a big window right here behind my computer, which it's night out, so it's not going to provide any light, but I have my computer here. So in the daytime, I don't need a light on at all, because this is a nice, really pleasing light that
Right.
comes in at me. And so when you're doing photography normally, or when you're doing stuff, do you find yourself relying more on natural light,
I
or
do. I do. And it really depends on the mood and the whole look that the client wants. So I'm pretty blessed to have amazing huge windows in my studio right now, and I just moved into a new studio a few months ago. So most of the time I use that light. And then I have V flats. I have
yeah?
a V flat that has white on one side and black on the other. So I use that to bounce light, or if I need to create some more shadows, I use the black side. And then if the client wants something that's really kind of a high fashion editorial look, that's when I bust out my strobes and really work with that for that really directional light.
Great. Yeah, I think natural light's probably the way to go. I try not to light anything so over the top that if it looks like you're lighting, I don't think you've done a good job.
Right,
Like,
right.
or if there's lights in a shot, at least for what I do. So, um, I want to talk a little bit more, Corey, about working with people in these intimate, personal, vulnerable situations. Um, you know, you have walked you've walked them through kind of the styling session. The day of the shoot is there. What does that entail? Could you walk me through, or walk us through some, like an actual shoot, and I don't need like a minute by minute breakdown, but um, how do um, how do you get started? Are you guys like, are people doing shots to calm their nerves? How does that work?
Okay. Well, that's a good point. I have a strict no alcohol policy. So I don't believe that a woman has to be under the influence of alcohol to do this. Like, it's
No.
okay. I let them know it is totally okay to be nervous. This is something that is out of people's comfort zones. I just work with everyday women. I don't photograph models. So I expect them to be nervous slash excited. So when they first get there, I'm super excited to see them. I let them know, every how excited I am. We've already done the entire planning process. So when they first get to the studio, we hang up their wardrobe, we go through all of their ideas, and then they have hair and makeup done in the studio. And my makeup artist is really good at just getting people to talk. They relax. We play their favorite Pandora station. I'll do some behind the scenes pictures and video on my phone for them. So after I compile a little video of their getting ready portion. So after that, I feel like the minute the hair and makeup stops, they get a little bit nervous. They change into their first outfit,
Yeah.
but then quickly, like, that fades. So I show the client the pose first. And then I explain what I'm doing and kind of why. And then as they're getting into the pose, I'm right there next to them on the bed, laying down, like showing them what to do. Um, I think the most important thing is to give your client constant feedback. So, I worked with a photographer a long time ago before I even started, and there was no feedback and it was quiet. And I was just like, what's going on? Is this awful? Like, I didn't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah.
So, really walking them through the whole thing, tons of positive feedback. I'm a complete dork during the session, and it's important for me to make it lighthearted and not so serious. So by the end of the shoot, they're like, this was great. Like, I'm not nervous. I mean, people are always really, really surprised by how much fun they had just, prancing around in their underwear, nearly nude. They're like, I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah. And then you say, well, I book follow-up sessions, so why not?
Exactly. The second
Uh,
session is always better.
yeah. It's really fun, and I think that the I think one of the bigger takeaways from that is that feedback.
Yeah.
Um, and I would like to say that trying to make every shoot or every project fun and lighthearted is the way I do stuff. But sometimes I've got to be a little bit grumpier. But I can handle people looking grumpy on camera. Uh, but I think that feedback is really important. And as a creative professional, the last thing you want is someone looking awkward on camera
Yeah.
when were just a little too nervous to say anything to them, but then they have like a weird wrist thing, or they're
Oh,
they're
yeah.
they're hunched in a weird way,
Or
or they've got
claws.
like, yeah,
Like
they've
the
got like claws, or they got like flyaways or something. And so I think that that's really important, and it's good that you're doing that constantly throughout the shoot. And I would assume that once those first couple of photos are taken and that first pose is maybe that kind of like the ice is broken there,
Yep, exactly.
they kind of open up a little bit more, and it's a little easier at that point.
Yes, it usually takes, I feel like, 5 to 10 minutes for someone to warm up and just get used to someone coaching them. But I'm giving them so much direction the whole time. Like, they don't really have time to be stuck in their heads and doubt themselves. They're paying attention when I'm doing. They're getting fired up because I'm giving them great feedback. They're listening to their favorite music, and it's like the veil is dropped. They see that it's not so scary after all.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like you're providing essentially like the first half of a wedding day, for them as part of this project, which everyone really enjoys. It's music in the background, um, and hair and makeup and stuff like that done. Um, so something something else that I want to kind of talk about is, um, you have al- along with how you treat your clients and how you handle everything that you do, you've got this like really strong like women empowerment vibe. If you spend more than 1 second looking at your social media accounts or anything like that, your website, it's there. I mean, it's not like written at the top of the page, but it's there. And you said something really powerful earlier on, that was that you don't want boudoir to be only women in lingerie, or that's, you know, you don't want it just to be thought of as that. So can we talk a little bit about you know, how you you know, maybe use this to empower women, and some of the things that maybe you've done over the years to help focus your brand, or maybe even just how this kind of came about, I guess. I mean, you know, it's not just like it's not just a job or a career move at this point. You've got like kind of a lifestyle brand, in a sense, that you're kind of upholding. There's like 7 questions buried in there, so just
Okay, I'll do my best here.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for noticing that, because it's been, you know, I feel like in the beginning it was a struggle to really come up with copywriting that felt true to what I wanted to convey. And you know, it is hard. It takes time to build up a brand voice and a message. And you know, when I first started, I don't think I could put into words what I was doing. And I just, you know, I really just looked at other photographers and tried to emulate what they were doing. So I would say over the years, I've really developed my brand voice and my messaging according to my own personal growth. I am a lifelong learner. I mean, I am obsessed with learning. I hated it in school, but I love it now. You know, I've worked with a life coach where we have really dug into certain beliefs that a lot of women grow up with, and a lot of women hold on to those experiences that have happened to them. You know, there's a lot of shame with their bodies and sexuality and what they are supposed to be, that I've spent a lot of my work diving into my own beliefs around that so that I can speak up about it. Because it's crazy the amount of women that have shame around their bodies. So I feel like that has been the factor that has played the biggest role in my brand messaging, and really taking the time to write out what my brand values are, who my ideal client is, and what they love and what kind of messaging they resonate with. And then also something I did was my favorite clients, I would kind of write down personality traits and hobbies of theirs. I would try and find similarities between them, because I was like, I want more of them. So what are they doing? Like, what accounts are they following? What are they passionate about? And doing that that took me a couple years to really start to hone in on my dream client. But that gave me more clarity around the women that I truly want to serve and the women that value this experience, because it's not just, I'm not a cheap photographer. I'm not an affordable photographer. So like, the women that work with me really have to want this, and they have to believe in it. And part of the reason they believe in what I do is because of my brand messaging. Does that answer the 7
No,
questions?
that's great. Yeah, I think you answered like 6 of them, maybe. No, that was really wonderful. I appreciate that. Clearly, I can't get a question out to save my life. I did another podcast like right before this, so my brain is. I had like 9 drinks during that one too. So no, that's really wonderful, and I think that a lot of freelancers would be well suited to think about their ideal clients, and think about, you know, when they're on a shoot, or you know, on a photo shoot or a film shoot or a video shoot, whatever they're doing, or if they're just a graphic designer, is, you know, identifying those traits that make someone fun to work with. And you can't have only fun clients in most industries, but you can certainly seek them out and try to engage with those people and stuff.
Yeah.
So you know, you've got kind of this lady focused lifestyle brand, and I'm sure that I'm like butchering these words or something. You know, I'm sure I'm saying something asinine.
Not at all.
But I think it's really wonderful that you're doing that. What are some things that you want to maybe do more of, or do you think that like let me ask this question, I guess. what can like a normal freelancer do to kind of, if they want to get into something like this, if they want to, maybe expand into, having their own brand, or want to support, or want to create a freelance brand that empowers women or something like that.
Yes.
What
Are
could
we
some
talking about Boudoir specifically?
probably, because I will say it's probably like, yeah, we'll say Boudoir specifically for now, and then I'll come
Okay.
back and ask the second question.
Okay, so I think I was thinking about this before our talk, and a lot of people happen to fall into it now. But now that Boudoir is more mainstream, I'm pretty sure every photographer has heard about it, and there's education now. So I would really recommend that people either go on Creative Live or mentor with another boudoir photographer who offers it. And you can get a head start that way. You can really learn the ins and outs of the business. You can go right into learning posing and working with women, because I feel like it's really different than every other genre. There is so much behavioral psychology that goes into this. So I feel like, if you've got your camera down, lighting, how to work your camera, you learn the posing, you learn everything that goes into an actual boudoir shoot, then you really start to learn about the psychology side. We always joke that boudoir photographers are like 80% therapist, 20% photographer. And it's true.
Yeah.
But then you also have to know like what that fine line is. You can't cross that. You're not responsible for, not responsible for being someone's therapist. We're more of a guide. So to circle back around, I would say just seek out classes. And then, I feel a lot of people get into this, they'll ask some friends if they can just model for them. So just practice until you're comfortable. You don't have to put anything online right away, but I would definitely recommend getting comfortable working with women before you start taking clients.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really good advice. And thanks for answering a question that I don't even know what I asked. But so, if someone were interested in getting started, do you entertain the idea of someone reaching out to you and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this. Would you mind if I sit in on a session or something like that?" Is that something that people can do?
So they can't sit in on a
Yeah.
session.
Oh yeah, I guess that would be. Yeah.
But well, in 2021, I am going to offer mentoring. So if someone wants to mentor with me, I would bring in probably one of my existing clients who is okay with it to model. And I'm going to be offering full days that someone can come learn to shoot with me, as well as like ongoing mentoring. So definitely they can reach out to me or another photographer who offers mentoring. And that way you get like, instead of just sitting in on a shoot, I would be explaining what I'm doing, why, and then they get to practice right alongside me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was going to be a follow-up question. Is like, if they are allowed in on a shoot, how does that work with like, it's like getting a physical and then there's like 7 medical students there.
All right.
Um,
That's happened to
but
me.
yeah, same here actually, which I was like, well, this is great for like every 15-year-old boy. That's what they want. Um, so I think that mentoring thing is really neat. That's really kind of a fascinating thing. I see a lot of people doing, or I've seen more of lately. I guess I don't see a lot of people doing it. And something that I think would be I think would be really beneficial is that, like, there's only so much you can learn from online classes. There's only so much you can learn from kind of walking around and posing yourself in the sun, or maybe even posing someone else. But listening to another freelancer, another professional, someone that's been doing it for a while, talk, and seeing how they interact with clients, and seeing how they, maybe instigate situations in a positive way, or how they diffuse situations,
Mm.
um, how they talk to someone about a pose, or how, um, to just move their body in whatever that way may be. I think that those are really important, because a lot of people don't realize that in our industries, a lot of people in our industries don't realize that the people that are on the other side of the camera have probably never been there before, and have no clue what they're doing. And they need a lot of that feedback. They need a lot of that advice. And that is a skill that like a decade in, it's still like, I'll talk to someone and I'm like, how long have I been doing this? Like, why would I say that to them? You know?
Yeah, we all have those moments.
Yeah, you know, but I still think I think it's a skill that you can improve on throughout your career.
Yeah.
So Cory, another question for you. You have got, you know, because you deal with people in these kind of intimate moments and stuff. How do you market yourself? How do you market boudoir photography? I mean, as you mentioned, it's a lot more commonplace today, but you know, is that wrapped up in contractual agreements where you get to share a couple of photos of everyone? Do you get their verbal permission? Do you just kind of share whatever you want? And then also, I do want to hear from you about maybe the like potential like social stigmas of, you know, you sharing these like intimate photos, you know, and it's, you know, again, there's like 4 questions in there.
Okay. So I only share photos that my client has agreed to. So they'll sign a model release. They'll give me explicit permission to share. Some of my clients keep everything private. Maybe they've got a high profile job. They're a doctor. They want to keep them private. And so that's up to every single client. Sometimes I will do something called a model call, which is basically if I've had a lot of clients recently who are keeping everything private and I need some fresh material, I will give a slight discount to someone if they allow me to share their photos or videos. Sometimes I'll do live streams of a shoot inside my private boudoir group. So you have to be really careful with marketing boudoir, and it's getting stricter and stricter. Instagram, I think, just came out or is coming out with some new AI that is going to crack down on anything racy, in their words. So you have to be really careful about what you show. No naked bums, not too much cleavage. You have to be careful about even the wording that you use in your caption.
Really?
Yes, because they have the AI that scans the caption and the image itself. So I have done the majority of my marketing through Instagram. I am pretty careful about the images that I select there. They're pretty tame by my standards.
I thought they were pretty racy. I don't know. I'm an old Quaker, if you couldn't dig it in.
So Instagram has been great. Word of mouth has been phenomenal. And then I have a private Facebook group for women where I share a lot of the work. I do live streams of shoots. I'm in there almost every day. And then I have a really good referral system, which plays into the word of mouth. So, you know, part of my marketing budget goes to referral fees. So if an existing client refers their friend to me, they get $75 and their client gets a discount as well.
Great.
Yeah, so that's I have played with Facebook ads, but that's even trickier. Yeah. I had my ads account disabled for one, so I try and use that as a last resort.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. Like I said, you've got a lot of great stuff on Instagram specifically. I can't say that I've seen anything on Facebook necessarily, but so you got. I kind of want to chat about this too because I've seen you post about it. And I wanted to kind of ask about it. You've got this like private Facebook group. Mm-hmm. Are these is a group like this just for clients? And is it just for a way for people to kind of interact in like a group setting? You know, what is that about, if you don't mind?
Yeah, that is for my clients and anyone that's interested in a shoot. They do have to answer questions in order to be approved. I always go check out people's profiles, you know, making sure they're legit and not a troll.
Yeah.
But that actually acts as lead generation for me. So I only share certain content in there versus, you know, they can't find that content anywhere else. And I'll also run certain promotions. They'll hear about things first before the public does. I do lives just where I talk about sessions and I talk about certain things. I've actually been doing interviews with other female entrepreneurs. It's
Oh,
more
cool.
like, to play into the whole lifestyle brand. So um, it's really just it's a tight knit community, and everyone comments on each other's photos, and we just have like real discussions, which is nice because we are missing connection and we really need it right now. So
Yeah.
that's been really nice to have that community grow.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. I think I belong to one for like my a hairdresser, the woman who like cuts my hair in, which I'm like, I get a guy's haircut. I don't really need a discount on it. If it gets any cheaper, it's gonna be free, Um, that's really interesting, and I've actually I've toyed around with the idea of doing something similar for clients where, we can have, like a client only kind of brainstorm sessions or talk about freelance stuff. And I haven't fleshed it out enough
Mhm.
yet. But that was more of a personal curiosity question in regards to that. Um, as um, so you've got this Facebook group that you do live streams with and stuff like that. I'm getting cat hair everywhere. I apologize. For anyone listening, I'm getting cat hair everywhere. It's in front of my face. For anyone watching, you've seen me wave my hands in front of my face. So you've got this like Facebook group that you do some live streams with. You do your photography stuff. You do a fair amount of thinking critically about your branding and all this other stuff that you're doing. What is the like kind of what's like a week for you look like in terms of where you spend your time and focus your efforts? Is that like are you okay answering that? I know some people play
Oh
that
yeah,
way where they're like, I get up on Monday, I go to sleep on Friday, and that's all you need to know,
yeah. Yeah, my weeks now look a little bit different than they did pre-COVID. So my kids are still at home e-learning. I'm divorced, so I have them the first half of the week. Their dad has them the second half of the week. So really on Mondays and Tuesdays, I am assisting with e-learning, cooking and cleaning nonstop, and trying to edit in between. So I have condensed my work week into Wednesday through Friday. So I'm usually, let's see, client consultations, style consultations on Wednesdays mixed in with editing. Thursdays are always my shoot days. So that's from like 10 a.m. to 2 o'clock, and then cleaning up the studio. And then I basically pass out afterward. I have major introvert hangover after a shoot. And then Fridays is a lot of editing, client reveal sessions, marketing. So that is my week in a nutshell right now. Now, hopefully, when the kids go back to school, I'll be able to do two shoots a week.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. So you do like a full 4-hour shoot once a week now?
Yeah. So the hair and makeup usually is about an hour and 15 to an hour and a half, and then the shoot itself is somewhere around 2 hours. So, yep, that's once a week, and that's about all I can handle right now.
Yeah. Yeah, those shoot days, which I don't do as much studio stuff nearly as you, but I find myself like the older I get, one full shoot day wipes me,
Yes.
and if I have to do like a shoot day up in Chicago or somewhere else where I have like a 3-hour drive, it's like if I don't stay overnight, I drive up, I shoot for like 8 hours or whatever, and then I come home and I'm like the next day, I'm like, oh, I can get so much done, and then like noon rolls around and I'm like, oh, I just want more coffee.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly how I am. I feel like we need a whole podcast about, well, I don't know if you're an introvert, but
no, I'm not.
wiped out. I'm just
Yeah,
wiped out. So
yeah,
I know that after a shoot day, I don't really want to see anyone the next day.
yeah,
I just need my
uh,
music and my computer.
yeah. No, I'm horribly extroverted. So COVID has been like my wife and I are both extroverted. We just run around like Tasmanian devils most days.
That's been rough for you.
But I like the introvert hangover because I do get those even as like a extrovert when you have to be like on all the
Yeah.
time. And I had a little bit of regular editing to do today, some client emails and stuff. And then I've got 3 podcasts that I'm filming today, and I'm going to be like beat tomorrow,
Yeah, I
but
hope you have some downtime planned.
it'll be okay. I'll sleep. But no, I think that's really, I like that term. I'll probably steal it. So thanks, I guess,
Anytime.
So Cory, I want to talk about something else really quick too. You had mentioned, or I feel like maybe I saw on your social media or your website that you offer services in a couple of different locations. How does that work? And how did that maybe come about for you?
Well, right now it doesn't work.
Well, yeah. Let's say pre-COVID and post-COVID. How did that work, and how was that work?
So pre-COVID, I was really ramping up building connections in Chicago. I adore Chicago. My plan was to go once a month and stay for about 2 days, do 2 to 3 shoots. So when COVID's over, safe to travel again, I'm going to go back to that plan. So really it started with, I wanted to go to Chicago more often. And I have some clients who have traveled down from Chicago, and I would really love to be able to go up there, rent a studio, find a cool Airbnb, and work up there once a month. And then, have like a free afternoon to go sightseeing, go to my favorite book cafes. So that really is my plan. So that entails a lot of relationship building with hairstylists, makeup artists, people who rent out studios, and then a lot of word of mouth and Facebook ads. It's hard for me, it's been a little bit hard to break into a completely new market, because a lot of my business here grew from just referrals, word of mouth. And we're, pretty small community here.
Yeah.
Everyone knows each other, it seems like, or has heard of each other.
Yeah. I was kind of curious about that because, so I lived in Bloomington Normal for like 15 years. I went to college there and then never left really until about 2 years ago. And my wife got a job here in Champaign at the University of Illinois. So we moved over here. And I'm actually from this area originally, but
Okay.
I thought it was like the hardest thing ever to break into a new market, and it's 45 minutes away,
Yeah.
So you had some clients initially from Chicago, did some advertising. I would assume that some of that had worked out at least a little bit,
Yeah, definitely. I had some shoots booked, and then COVID hit, and we just had to postpone indefinitely.
Yeah.
Another thing that I did was I started a brand ambassador program this past year. And so one of my past clients moved to Chicago probably about a year ago, and she's a brand ambassador for me. So she'll come to Bloomington a couple times a year and do shoots. And then she posts on her Instagram, Facebook. She writes blog posts for me. So that's been helpful too. Can
Great.
I ask how you broke into a new market?
I sat on a street corner with a sign with my Twitter handle for like 6 months. No, it was, thank you for the question. And it was tough. I mean, every market that you go to feasibly has people already there that are doing the work that you want to do, whether it's, boudoir photography or video production. And one of the things that helped me when I was in Bloomington Normal was that being an extrovert and I like to be involved in the community was just getting out and doing as much as I possibly could. So if there is a networking event, no matter how painfully awkward it might be to go and force yourself to like eat a crab cake and talk to someone you've never met before, I would do that. And being involved in the community and making sure that like every single person knows that you do video production or that I did. That way, if someone brought me up or brought up video production, I wanted those terms to be interchangeable.
Yeah.
So, we moved in 2019. I was finishing up some client projects. 2020, I was like, I'm going to get involved in all the community, all the young networking, groups or whatever, 2020 hit, COVID hit, and I have since gotten clients, but it has been a lot of word of mouth. I don't find that advertising has worked as well for me, but there's also a handful of people here that already do video production and do it very well. So I gotta compete on that word of mouth level. I can't, I'm not
Yes.
gonna out advertise someone that already has word of mouth going on here in town, because that's the strongest advertising as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's a great point. Really good point.
So it's been interesting. A lot of my clients are still in Bloomington Normal. And then a lot of the surrounding, it started like seeping out. So all the smaller communities started kind of trickling in. So like, Decatur and Pontiac, Peoria. I have a lot of clients up in Chicago too. But I started getting them here in town. I'm here in Champaign, Urbana, but it was a tough market. And I have one of my best buddies does video production in Chicago, and I try to go up and work with him whenever I can, but it only ends up being like twice a year, because that market is just so saturated, that it's just really hard. It's hard to implant yourself. It'd be like moving across the country without a job,
Yes.
and then trying to get a job there. I mean, really, it's exactly what it is, just on a
Terrifying.
weird micro scale.
Yes.
So I don't know if I have a great answer for that, but I just word of mouth. I mean, and again, trying to make sure that if my name comes up, that people know what I do, or if people want video production, it's there. I mean, I do get a fair amount of hits on my like website and social media and stuff, but it's not a ton. But it works out okay.
Yeah, I love that. That really stuck in my head when someone brings up video production. It's like, ding, we think of you.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I assume that you're speaking directly about me, right? But yeah, I mean, really, that's what I want, and that's a tough balance, because I almost don't want my identities tied so directly to video production that if I, for whatever reason, am just unable to do that anymore, or the industry has such a shift that, like, it's just people are like, oh yeah, Adam used to do video production, but now we do whatever the new technology is.
Oh, yeah.
But luckily there's so much need for photography and videography that I don't see my job really going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a steep learning curve too.
Yeah.
And even someone who buys the equipment, they get it and they're like, I don't understand how to use this. So yeah, it's definitely easier to pay someone.
Yeah, to do it. Yeah. Which I don't. This probably is not as common of a thing in your industry, but I have had plenty of times where a client, I'm just too expensive for a client to afford, which is fine. I don't want to be known as the affordable video guy. But like 6 months later, they'll come back and say, hey, that really cheap person that we went with didn't do well.
Yes.
Can you do it now? And I'm like, I can. I'm not giving you a discount because you already shelled out $500. Do you ever have instances like that where someone goes, I try to take photos on my phone and they just didn't turn out?
So yes, and I've had some clients who have worked with less experienced boudoir photographers, and then they came to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you
I have
you pay for, and I mean, it's nice to be able to help those people that didn't get the experience they were looking for, and I think that really helps them moving forward and hiring other people, because you get that taste of what it's like to really pay for something valuable, and when you're happy with the end product or service, it's just it clicks, and then maybe you're not as much of a price shopper anymore.
Yeah. I'm gonna have a cat join me here in a sec. I apologize.
Aw.
There you go. Well, a cat too.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Okay, great. It's my big one. So, and he's been climbing up on shoulders over the past like week. I don't know what's going on.
He needs some attention.
Yeah. So, anyway, So I had another follow-up question too, Cory. You had mentioned that Instagram is, um, I don't know how I'm supposed to hold him. There you go. Ben. You mentioned that Instagram is cracking down on stuff. How do you do research? How do you find out about this? Because of, you know, with your industry, it's a little more kind of touch and go. It's a little more involved than, you know, me sharing a tractor commercial that I made. How do you stay educated and up to date on all that sort of stuff?
So I'm in some different Facebook communities just for boudoir photographers. So when someone gets word of something, they update everyone. So it's a really tight knit community. Most of the people are really awesome about sharing knowledge, what works for them. So really, just word of mouth. I've heard.
Cool. Yeah, it's always weird. I feel like I probably hear about most stuff within a few days of it coming out.
Mhm.
But there are times when, you know, something will just happen on Facebook or YouTube, for me in particular, where just all of a sudden this has happened and people are like, oh yeah, they've been talking about it for a month. You know,
Yeah, I've been there too.
where the hell was I? So I was just curious on that one. Um, Delightful. So, Cory, now that my cat is on my shoulder, we're to the fun portion of the podcast where we're gonna dive into the softball questions, the funner stuff.
Okay.
To kind of wind us down, what is, you know, what's something fun you're working on? What's next for you? What does 2021 have in store for Cori Strong photography?
Oh, so much. I have a lot of passion projects that I want to do. So right now I am trying to narrow down what do I actually want to work on. Um, so this past year I started a magazine, which really like my first issue was just a portfolio. My second issue, I actually interviewed female entrepreneurs,
Oh,
local entrepreneurs, and that was so much fun. And I want to go back to the magazine. I want to keep featuring women's stories. So I have a few projects. I can't really give too many details, but there are going to be some fun projects that'll be in the next issue of the magazine. Um, I have a coffee table book that I am planning and probably going to self-publish. But really, those are my main focuses. And then also offering the mentoring. And then I'm going to also be offering some online courses for just complete beginners, non-photographers. Just I get a ton of questions about how do I get into photography? How do I even work this camera? So I really want to get into teaching this year,
cool.
and just feel like I'm a natural teacher, and it's time.
That's great. Yeah, I felt like that was one of those things. I had gone back and got my master's degree so I could teach at the college level. I really enjoy it, and it's something I produce YouTube content for freelancers or video people starting out, and just from talking to you and hearing about what you do, but also the way that you know discuss things with people, I think that you would be a good teacher in that regard.
Thank
I think
you.
that'd be a good thing for you to get into. What do you have any platforms in mind as to how you're going to publish that out? Or are you going to be all self-published um,
Courses?
in the mentoring, yeah, or the courses one? I mean,
Okay, for the courses, I'm going to use Teachable. I
okay,
grabbed their Black Friday deal and I'm like, I'm doing it. Just gonna do it.
yeah, I've heard of them. I haven't dealt with them at all. Um,
Yeah, I've taken some courses from people who work on that platform, and it's really user friendly, nice
cool.
interface. Seems to have a relatively easy learning curve. So I'm
Cool.
excited to dive into that.
Oh, that sounds fun. And then in terms of the magazine and the coffee table book, um, how do you, other than like the idea and having photos and content to put in one of those, how do you go about making a coffee table book in 2020, 2021, you know? What goes into that?
Well, lots of planning first. I would ideally like to do some sort of book tour where I go to some different cities and work with women just outside of, the Bloomington normal community. So I've got my idea in mind. I've got my inspiration, my layout. And then as far as publishing, we have a lot of options now for self-publishing. So to be honest, I'm probably going to hire that part out.
Yeah.
Because I have DIY'd enough stuff in my day that it's just too frustrating.
You gotta have your kids do it,
Right? They can pick up anything.
Yeah, be like an illuminated manuscript where everyone is a little different.
Yeah, they know more than I do now.
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, I was just kind of curious. I had seen online that you were doing that magazine, and the coffee table book sounds really fascinating to do. Are you going to do that as part of like the lifestyle brand stuff, or is that going to be boudoir focused?
It will be, so let's see. I have my thought about what it's going to be around. It's not going to be just boudoir, but
Okay.
it'll be female portraits along with each woman's story about a certain topic.
Cool.
So they won't all be boudoir photos. Some of them can be, but really, just really, I guess, introspective portraits, more along the lines of something that you would see in an editorial spread in a fashion magazine. So
Cool.
it'll definitely have a certain theme, and then stories that the everyday woman can relate to around this topic. So it's going to be like the book that you give your girlfriend or your sister or someone who is going through this life experience.
Cool. That sounds wonderful. And Cory, those are all the questions I have for you. Do you have any questions for me? And if someone wants to check out your work, how do they do that?
Okay. Well, yes, I do have a question for you.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Please.
We were talking about, the process of helping clients feel comfortable before the photo shoot,
Yes.
Anything begins. Can you give me some tips or share, your process of how you help make a client feel comfortable?
Sure. Normally, you just try to act like a jackass for like 5 to 10 minutes. But really, that's a really good question, and that's something that, again, I think is really difficult for people to kind of get in, because if you're trying too hard, it's going to come off.
Yeah.
You want to be a genuine person. Put yourself. I like to put myself in their shoes, even several thousand probably interviews into my career, and understand that these people have probably, a lot of them have never been on camera before. So I like to over explain. It sounded like you have a similar concept. So
Yep.
everything that I'm doing, a lot of times it's not as intimate as a boudoir shoot, but a lot of times I have to touch people's collars and stuff to clip on microphones. So I wanted to let them know every single thing that I'm doing. Obviously I have them like help me wind it up through their shirt, but just so they know what's going on. And then while I'm setting up lighting, a lot of times what I do is I sit them where I want them or where I'm going to have them in the shoot. I've set up lights so many times now that I can do it while I'm talking to someone and carrying on a full conversation. So I'll start to talk to them about stuff. I'll let them know kind of what the project is going to entail, what their interviews are going to be like, how long it's going to take. And then depending on how involved maybe my setup is, I'll ask them a little bit about them. So based on what I know from conversing with them, I'll talk to them about themselves. Everyone loves talking about their kids or their pets or something like that. So, I'm not like, hey, who'd you vote for this year? It's, it's like, hey, I thought I saw a photo of a dog on your desk.
Yeah, perfect.
And getting them comfortable with the scenario and also comfortable with you, because if they have one familiar thing in the scenario, me at that point, they're going to be a lot more comfortable within it. I'm not going to be a best friend. I'm not going to be like a security blanket, but I'm going to be a lot more comfortable and known to them at that point. So I explain a lot of stuff to them, and then I just talk to them. Sometimes I'll I'll ask, this is my wife's idea actually. She was like, oh, I asked people their like favorite celebrity crushes or like their like guilty pleasure like desert island movies, and then if they won't answer,
Brilliant.
I'll just say something really obnoxious to them. So like, oh, like who's your favorite celebrity crush, and then I'll say something obnoxious. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but I'll say mine, or and stuff like that kind of like lightens the mood a little bit and can make them let their guard down and relax a little bit.
I love that. I'm going to remember that.
Take it. Yeah, feel free. Or like favorite nacho toppings. Stuff that like throws them, that gets them out of the moment.
Yeah, out of their head.
And makes them think about something else. Or a lot of times when I'm doing a microphone check, I have them tell me about what they had for breakfast. And then that dives right into, you could talk for hours about food with most people. So I'll make fun of their breakfast in a lighthearted way. Obviously, don't be mean. I'll tell them what I had for breakfast. I'll ask them what they're going to have for lunch. Stuff like that is a really easy way to gain some rapport with the client.
I love that, and I'm going to use those tips next time someone's in hair and makeup. Like that's the perfect time to just warm them up and get them out of their head from forgetting about the nerves.
Yeah. Or joking about people in the room if you know them a little more, that's always helpful. But yeah, it's just like getting them out of the moment is usually, I think, the biggest thing. If they can stop thinking about being on camera for 5 seconds, then they can do it for 10 seconds and 2 minutes and 5 minutes and 10 minutes.
There you go. Yeah. And being on camera sounds terrifying to me. So, but I can tell you would make it a very easy process for someone.
I try to. Because it doesn't mean no good if someone looks like clammed up, in their shot. They're going to come back and be like, why do I look like that? And I'll be like, oh, that's how you look, man. That's not an excuse. Certainly not one that goes over well with clients.
No.
Great question. So Cory, if people want to check out your work or get in contact with you, how can they do that?
Well, you can visit my website, which is coristrong.com, and my name is spelled Cori. That is always misspelled. So coristrong.com. I am on Instagram every day, and that's Cori_Strong_photography. And you can connect with me on Facebook too, just Cori Strong Photography. Great. But I'm pretty much on Instagram every single day.
Yeah, I can confirm. I think you're Instagram storying me before we like that. Well, that's wonderful, Cory. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and get to know a little bit more about your unorthodox industry that you work in. And really, it's nice to hear your story on things and to see someone locally creating such a good like women empowerment brand that encompasses a lot of different stuff and not just women in lingerie, as you put it. So it's really nice to see that. So with that, I'm done with you. You can get out of here. You can drink your hot toddy. No, really, it's been go have a second one. It's fine. It's been really nice to talk with you. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you so very much for joining me for this chat.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is great.
No, enjoy your night, and I'm sure I will talk to you later. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Bye.
Bye.